Last time, we saw how the unbelievable sacrifice of George Washington and the Continental Army delivered victory in an impossible war. But independence was only the beginning. The moment the war ended, America faced a new, more perilous crisis. How do we govern ourselves? The system they initially created, the Articles of Confederation, quickly fell apart. It was a weak league of friendships where each state acted like an independent nation. The central government had no power to levy taxes, nor could it raise its own national army. States were squabbling over trade, and the national economy was on the brink of collapse. They had freedom, but no unity. In 1786, when poor farmers burdened by debt rose up in rebellion, known as Shays' Rebellion, the nation's leaders realized the truth. They had to act fast. The revolution may have survived the external enemy, but it could be destroyed by internal chaos. The leaders called a secret meeting, the famous Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia during the summer of 1787. The stated goal was merely to amend the old Articles of Confederation. But James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and other delegates were ready to do something far grander. This convention was a war of the pen and parchment. The delegates were deeply divided over fundamental moral and political issues, small states versus large states, North versus South, and the question of slavery versus liberty. The discussions were secret, intense, and long. They knew every word they wrote would either create this new nation or tear it apart. To preside over this convention, they called upon the one man who had famously refused power, George Washington. Washington's presence was transformative. He rarely engaged in the debates, but his unwavering dignity and quiet loyalty to the nation meant no delegate dared to walk out. He was the indispensable symbol of unity and legitimacy. His very silence was a powerful message. This task must succeed. After 4 months of grueling work, they produced a remarkable document, the U.S. Constitution. It created a single, powerful government that balanced centralized authority with individual liberty. It ensured the country would be governed by the rule of law, not the whims of men. In 1788, after an intense public debate fueled by the Federalist Papers, the Constitution was ratified. The Revolution had achieved military victory. Now it had achieved constitutional victory. The next step was clear. George Washington, who had stepped away from power, had to return to national service, this time as the first president of the United States. Washington's presidency, the test of power. Washington's presidency was an ordeal by fire because he had to set a precedent for every single action. The Constitution gave the government power, but Washington had to show how that power would be used and controlled. His most immediate challenge was the national debt. To restore international confidence, Treasury Secretary Hamilton proposed that the federal government assume all state war debts, funding the repayment with a new excise tax on whiskey. Farmers in western Pennsylvania, for whom whiskey was a vital commodity, saw this tax as tyranny and launched the Whiskey Rebellion. This was the new Constitution's first test. Washington did not hesitate. He personally led an army of 13,000 troops to put down the rebellion. The swift, overwhelming show of force ended the revolt instantly. Washington sent a clear message. The laws of the new federal government would be enforced, and the Union would be preserved, by military force if necessary. This action proved the Constitution was not a flimsy document, but a functioning framework of power. The final precedent, the farewell. After 8 years of service, Washington once again made the ultimate choice to step down. He knew his retirement would set another powerful precedent for democracy, demonstrating that the president was not a king. In 1796, he published his farewell address. It wasn't just a goodbye, it was a fatherly warning for future generations. His core message focused on two dangers: the peril of political factions. He feared that the rise of political parties would divide the nation and overshadow the common good, and foreign entanglements. He cautioned Americans against getting pulled into the constant wars of Europe and warned against forming permanent alliances with foreign nations, urging America to focus only on commercial relations. Washington's last act was as revolutionary as his first. By voluntarily giving up power, he enshrined the principle that a soldier is first and foremost a citizen. Through his unwavering resolve, from military victory to securing constitutional unity to peacefully relinquishing power, George Washington established the enduring precedents that ensured the United States would not only be created, but would endure.